Hi and welcome back to the channel. Today you join me in installing and adjusting a SRAM 12-speed Eagle derailleur.
Just a little something like this.
I am removing a SRAM NX derailleur from my enduro bike and I'm replacing it with the GX 12-speed Eagle from SRAM. Check up there to compare the physical differences between the two. That was in the last video that I put on the channel. But let's go ahead and take a look at what's going on. So this is the SRAM GX Eagle derailleur. In the box you will expect to find, what's that say? It's got a QR code. Basically says it requires a precise install to safely install and use your products. Cardboard, and in here is where the good bits are. So obviously you're going to have your rear derailleur. We have got a piece of plastic here. Do not throw this away. This will come in handy. And as a whole here, I've got a feeling they probably use the same packaging for the SRAM Access, rather than have different carton inserts for their kit. Now what you're about to see does apply to all of SRAM's 12-speed Eagle derailleurs. Setup process for them is going to be the same across the whole board. I've already taken off my SRAM NX derailleur here, so it's all ready for the GX1 to get screwed into place. I didn't actually have any problems with my SRAM NX derailleur. It's just that I had a really great price for a SRAM GX, so that's the route that I've gone down. And as you can see, the SRAM NX was actually shifting perfectly okay. And hopefully I'm gonna get the same or slightly better performance out of the GX because of the build quality, and there's not as much play throughout the derailleur. So to start off with, you're going to need obviously your rear derailleur. You're going to need a 5mm Allen key, and you're going to want to thread that into your derailleur hanger. There's a tab here that lines up against your B adjustment screw. That needs to be sat in the right place on your derailleur hanger. You see that just here. There's a little bit like a little step, and it should just be up against that. So let's get this screwed in. Once you've tightened that up just with your Allen key, it needs to be torqued up to between 10 and 12 Newton meters. Now I'm just going to get the chain out of the way, get it thread through the derailleur itself. Just going to open the derailleur up, just press that cage lock button, and it's going to make threading the chain through there a lot easier. Just sitting out on the smallest cog up there. I'm going to use my master link pliers, but as soon as you've got this master link or quick link in place, you can just crank around on the pedals whilst holding the back wheel or holding the brake. Trying to make sure this goes in evenly both sides. So you want to make sure it's poked in here and the other side and it's even, and you haven't got any gaps between these outer walls here and the chain on the inside. And then you just want to pop your master link pliers in. If you've got master link pliers, give them a squeeze and you should hear it click. Just make sure that is in, try and twist it around in all different directions, visually check that the pin in the middle is located on the outer side of the elongated holes, both front and back, which it is. Then it's time to release the cage. Now, setting up a rear derailleur basically comes down to three things. You're looking at cable tension, you're looking at adjustment screws, to which there are two of, high and low, and you're also looking at your chain gap, which is adjusted through your B adjustment screw. Now, as the chain is already on the smallest cog, I'm just going to start with the high gear limit screw. So the smallest cog makes you go fastest, so it's the highest gear. The biggest cog is the slowest gear. It's the lowest gear. Even though it's a bigger cog versus a small one, some people get confused, but that's the way it is. The high limit adjustment screw is this one just here. Okay, I'm just going to turn that, and you should hopefully see just down here, this is moving outwards. Okay, so that needs to be in line with the smallest cog. You see that's just actually relaxed and pinned into place now that it's lined up. It needs to be in line with that smallest cog, but then out ever such a slight amount. Okay, so we'll leave it there. Now, adjusting that screw to that point and no further will stop your chain from running off of this gear and into your dropouts, and scratching up any of your paintwork and causing any damage down here, and jamming up as well. You don't want it jamming up, that's not cool. So now we've done that one, I'm going to thread the gear cable through the derailleur, get it clamped, and then we can start to adjust other bits. Now, before you actually thread that gear cable in and through the derailleur, you just want to wind your barrel adjuster on your shifter all the way in. Depending on how tight you're going to pull the cable with the derailleur, now you don't want to put it that tight when you're clamping down on that end. You might want to take it all the way in, but then just out a couple of clicks. Make sure that when you are winding this barrel adjuster in, before you do it, make sure that you are in your highest gear, smallest cog, okay? Okay, I'm reusing my gear cable. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. Probably should change it, but I've never had any issues with this on the other setup, so I'm not envisioning there being any issues with it on this setup. Now, if you're going to reuse the same cable, you're going to want to put a little bit of tape or something just around the end, just so that will pass through this little wheel at the top, like so, and then make sure that the cable end sits nicely in here. With the cage lock on there, it is going to give you a little bit more access just into here. So the cable, once you've gone around that top wheel, just needs to go through, hopefully, through here. There we go. Then it's ready to clamp down behind that washer. There will be a little groove in the back of the washer that you will be able to see when you're setting it up. When you're happy that your outer housing is seated correctly, and it's not loose here with your inner, it doesn't want to be tight either, just doesn't want to be flapping around, you can then tighten up this using your torque wrench. 4 Newton meters to 5 Newton meters is what we're looking at. don't forget to install your cable end. Now I'm going to see if I can just run this chain down through the gears. Go one click at a time. Remember, we haven't actually done the cable tension yet, so if it's a bit hesitant, we won't worry too much on it. I just want to see if I can get that into the biggest cog so we can set that low limit screw. Go slow at this point, because if that derailleur shifts it too far, the chain's gonna end up between your biggest cog and your spokes. Okay, so we're in the biggest cog. If I push a little bit more on my shifter, it doesn't actually want to go off of that biggest cog. So I can see that my upper jockey wheel is not quite in line with this biggest cog. So I'm going over to the low limits adjustment screw, and I'm just going to twist that until that lines up. Just going anti-clockwise, and that is bringing that more in line. When you're happy that you've set your limit screws so your chain stays on the cassette and it doesn't shift too far off the back or drop too far off the front, it stays on the cogs, it's time to check your B screw tension or your chain gap. Now, if you remember a little bit earlier on, I was talking about a little bit of plastic that came in the box with your derailleur. You may have a white one, you may have a red one. The red ones will do up to a 50 tooth on the biggest cog. These white ones will do up to a 52 tooth. The white ones will also do a 50. So to use one of these, you're going to have to get your chain into the second biggest cog. And then this tool goes this way around, and we'll just push on to the biggest cog there. Make sure that you can actually see the teeth through this little window. Now, if you're setting your bike up for its B tension and it's a full suspension, ideally you do need to have your rear suspension set at your sag point. So if you have a 20% sag on your rear shock, you're going to need to ideally let out air to represent that 20% sag. Or you could sit on the bike and get someone who can use some hand tools just to set this for you. Now, on my NX, I noted where this was set up, and it was just offset. So I'm going to do this the same, and it should by rights work perfectly. So if I just roll my wheel back, bring that tool into position, that is quite a way out from the center. From what I can see, I don't even know if you can see that yourselves. Let's get that adjusted. On the NX, it was a silver bolt. On this one, it is black, and it is threaded through from the other side. Make sure when you're adjusting this, that this tool stays in position. Let's put a bit of light on there so maybe you people can see. So that is spot on. If I was sat on the bike and doing it, you can see that little arrow here is right in the middle of that bolt for the upper pulley. But comparing it to my NX1, I just need to go off to the side. I would say probably about there. dropping 5 gears at a time. So that was actually a fairly straightforward setup for me. If you find when you're starting off down here and you're trying to drop your gears, now when I'm saying drop your gears, it seems like I'm saying it the wrong way around, because dropping your gears would be coming down here, right? But if you're pushing on your shifter and your chain's not climbing up the cassette, that's probably a better way to say it. So say for example, you're coming from this one here and it's not quite getting into there, you're going to need a little bit more on your barrel adjuster at the shifter, just to tighten that cable just a little bit, and then when you drop back down again and then push, hopefully it'll climb. If not, do it again, a little bit more on the barrel adjuster, drop it, push again, and then hopefully it should go up. Once you've got like the first 4 or 5, you should be okay with tension for the rest. If when you're trying to come down the cassette it's not quite going, you're going to need to take a little bit off of that barrel adjuster on your shifter, just to allow that derailleur just to guide the chain down each one. Now when you're doing it initially, do 1 click at a time on your shifter, because when you do that click you need to have something happen down here. Okay, that's what the indexing of the shifter is. So that's how you index your gears. After running your gears for a while, you may find that it doesn't go up the cassette that well. It's just where your cables are settling in. You may need to just give it a little tweak with that barrel adjuster, just to give it a little bit more tension there to get it to shift. So there we go, another one draws to a close. Do you run SRAM at all for the gears on your bike? I've got Shimano XT on my hardtail, and obviously I've got SRAM on this bike. I don't think I've really got a preference between the two. Let us know your thoughts in the comments down below. Whilst you're down there, obviously don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss out on any future content. And I'll see you in the next video.